start at sharp at 2:05. We have already mentioned in the group, so just a minute
Yeah.
more.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, you're audible. Okay, then we should start our today's session.
Yes.
So, good afternoon, all. I hope you're doing great, and I warmly welcome you all in today's placement preparation by Team CSI SIM NCR chapter in collaboration with Interview Buddy.
We are all aware of the word placement and we are all afraid of that word too. Like college में तो आ गए भाई, अब placement का क्या होगा? So don't be afraid. We have our buddy here. We have Sir Brian Taylor. Over to you, Tanav.
Thank you, Basu.
Thank you,
Mr.
Basu.
Brian has over more than 30 years of experience. He has been a technical advisor in engineering plastics, LG Chem India, earlier divisional head in quality innovations and solutions, and product development and technical services head for LG Chem India Polymer Division. He has been a qualified competency assessor for ExxonMobil and worked in the competency assessment and training department for RasGas and Qatar, developing assessment packages and procedures for the LNG trains. So I would like to request Brian sir to continue for the preparations and guide us with our careers.
Thank you, Tanav. Basu.
Thank you, sir.
I'm here.
Thank you, sir.
I'll open up my presentation first. Share it.
Sure, sir. All those who will have the questions in their mind, please jot it down in the chat box and we'll ask sir at the end. Is that fine, sir?
Yes, that's I'll tell them.
Sure, sir.
Now, I wanted to. No,
Sir, you have to click on the present button, I guess.
thank you.
It's okay, sir.
Good afternoon, participants. We have guys and girls.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, girls and guys, good afternoon, and welcome to this session of developing the art of facing interviews and from when. To start with, I've already been introduced, so enough said about me, but we'll go ahead with how we'll go about the session. I'll be covering all these slides one by one on various topics, taking you through the whole process of, to quote the title again, developing the art of facing interviews and from when. Now, while I go through, please feel free to stop me if I'm going too fast, maybe too slow, or if there's anything you don't understand. But if it comes to questions, I would suggest that for us to progress methodically, we'll hold that for the last session. I'll give you a chance for you to ask the questions. I would also request you to, when you have a question on a particular slide, look at the slide number, use that as a referral. So when we address that question, it will be easy for both of us to go back there and, we can debate on that. One more request is, I would ask all of you to stay till the very end, because Interview Buddy, person to whom we are using this platform, is got something, has got a little surprise for you, something that's going to help you very much to develop you for interviews, and it's a freebie basically, because we'll talk about that later, but I would ask you to, I don't want to spoil the surprise, so please hold on and let's get through it. Let's learn from each other. I mean, about how we develop the art of facing interviews. Number one, there is no thumb rule. Two, no two interviews are the same. Same qualification, same company, same job. But it's never the same, as you will see. This is the ground that we are going to cover this afternoon. I'll run you through that very quickly, so you'll have an idea of what we're talking about. We're talking about what interviews are all about, what job interviews are about. Now, I am going to keep this focused on the employment side of interviews. I mean, because that's the target audience, and that's what you need. We're talking about the fears that interviews induce in us. How are interviews based? The basis and segments of interviews, preparation, and then the whole interview, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion of an interview. And how can you evaluate yourself post-interview? What are the factors that determine whether you are successful or unsuccessful in an interview? What does it mean? What does successful in an interview mean? What does unsuccessful mean? What does it mean to fail? Then the crux of the question is, the second part of this title is, when do we start? So what do we do and how do we go about it? So I think, are we good to go? And we'll go from here. So first, let's understand what interviews are about. What is an interview? An interview is a formal meeting in which one person evaluates another person, or a group of people evaluate another person, the group being a panel. What do? They question, they consult, or they evaluate that person. Any interview, wherever it is, this is the crux. Question, consultation, evaluation. All right. Now, can interviews be dispensed with? Can we escape from interviews? Can we do without them? Can we avoid them? The answer is an emphatic no. If you are a professional, otherwise also, interviews will be something of utmost importance all through your professional life. The type of interviews that I listed below will give you a very clear idea of there's no running away from an interview. Either which way you head, you've got to face interviews, different kinds of interviews. Starting with first, the enrollment to the employment interview. 2, the performance interview. You know what an enrollment and employment interview is. You go for a job. You even go into from your BTech, you go into masters, you've got to enroll in a college. Even then there's an interview. You have a job, there's periodical performance interviews. There is persuasive interviews. When you're working, when you're a professional, there may be a cause for change. There may be a reason where they want to shift you, and nobody likes change. So they have interviews to persuade you, to tell you why you need to go, why they need to shift you, how good you are, how good you have, what you have done, what you haven't done, what you can do, what you cannot do, and how you can do better in another place. These are persuasive interviews. Then there's the info gaining interviews, which is the general surveys. Even when it comes back to employment, as an employee, there are times where they'll call you for an interview, evaluate your performance, tell you how good you are, and gather information from you to find out what's happening in the department, if anything discrete is going on, how you can help. Exit interviews, even when you leave one job to another, there's an interview where you've got to tell why. Solution finding interviews, where you have a problem, where you have a burning problem, you have something like war rooms, they call people one-on-one and get individual ideas to try to address a problem, which they cannot find a solution easily to. And then there's a counseling interview. If you do well, or you've got a problem, it's an administrative issue or whatever, so like you see, all through your career, right to the very end, you are always going to live with interviews, so learn to live with them. And all these interviews can be structured, unstructured, semi-structured. The structured ones need no explanation. It's a conversation where an interviewer asks the interviewer a set number of questions, standardized order. Unstructured, any way which he can. And basically this is a time where you can set the tone for the interview, basically, because what you say leads to another question. The semi-structured is a combination of both, compared with the structured interviews. Now, this is an interview where, if you ask me, is the most dangerous, the most tough. It is very, very less objective and very, very difficult to defend in some cases. So a lot depends on what you say and how deeper they will take you. And anyhow, these are the different types of interviews that you will face. Now let's focus on the employment interviews or the job interviews, as we call them. What are they about? Same thing. A job interview too, as mentioned, is a formal meeting in where one person, an interviewer, or more persons, the panel, will question, consult, and evaluate another person called the interviewee, or let's get down to being personal, you. What's the common objective? You and the employer exchange information. What's the objective for you? Number one, you have to get an offer for employment. The interviewer, he wants to find out whether you have the skills, the abilities, the knowledge to suit this requirement. Do you fit the bill? For you, what do? You use this platform, you project your personality, you project yourself, your education, your background, your strengths, how good you communicate, what are your interests, what activities you have an affinity to, your social behavior, basically a type of person you are. And while you speak, the interviewer, what he does, he reads you, evaluates all that you tell him, your cultural and educational background, your work experience, behavior, your IQ, how well you communicate, what type of a personality are you, what will interest you, how do you behave. So basically, the sum up, the bottom line is, you are trying to sell a product yourself. The interviewer, or as we can call him, the company, is checking out the product they need to buy. Now, are interviews to be feared? Of course, interviews do induce fear. Undoubtedly. It is quite natural. So what do we do to overcome this superficial fear? Please note the word superficial. I purposely use that word. First you've got to do is know your fears. Get down to brass tacks and study yourself. Ask yourself what your fears are. Know your fears, and then you overcome your fears through two things. You take action to overcome those fears. And three, you change your perspective. Overcome fears through perspective. So to know your fears, you ask yourself, what are you scared about? What are you most scared of? What's the greatest fear? Is it lack of knowledge? Scared you will fail? Or is it speaking and behaving? For this is pretty easy because you can take action. Overcome these fears through actions. Be aware what your employer is looking for. He is looking for those personal attributes that will add to your effectiveness as an employee. What will make you an effective employee? What will make you an effective employee for that company? Which characteristics will match what they are looking for? How well you work in a team, your ability to work in a team. They will try to gather, are you a problem solving skills, dependability, how organized you are. Are you a proactive person or are you laid back? Are you flexible in your thinking or are you rigid? How resourceful you are and will be for the company. You've got to find ways of depicting these traits. Now, if knowledge is your fear, build it. Start enhancing your knowledge. Go down, read again and again, widen your periphery, widen your peripheral vision. If speaking is your fear, practice it. Practice it how? On a daily, regular basis. Make speaking a habit. We're going to talk more about this later. So I will take you through that. I will run you through that much later on these aspects. Now, the other fears is what will happen if you do not do well? What does not doing well mean? You've got to change your perspective first. First, you need to accept the interview as an evaluative situation. It's something which is evaluating you. So be prepared for it. Prepare for it very carefully. Trust the process. Next, psych yourself. Know that you are going to gain from any interview. Each interview you will gain something from. There's no interview that you'll attend and lose out on. An interview may not result in a job offer, but it will serve you as a great growth opportunity and a confidence builder. It will put you on a higher platform for the next interview. Trust me on that. 2 points to note. Don't feel intimidated. The employer needs you as much as you need the employment. Imagine a case scenario. They come to a campus interview or wherever and they don't find one person whom suits the bill. Just look at how much of trouble the interviewer is in. So, I mean, this is going to make you, put you on equal ground. You can look the interviewer in the eye, provided you satisfy the requirements. So, nothing to feel scared about. Next, another point to note, not getting selected does not mean you're bad, doesn't mean you're less, doesn't mean you're a child of a lesser god. It's all about fitment. Do you fit that particular role? Maybe not. Not everyone is tailor-made for every role. What you may not be suitable for, you're going to do a hell of a lot better in some other role. So psych yourself on this. Get to know interviews. Overcome your fears which you can have control over. Take yourself in retrospect. Look at interviews with a new perspective. That will eliminate the superficial fear that we all have at one stage in our lives for interviews. Now that we've overcome this, let me tell you that all interviews, they have the objective of evaluating how you fit the role, yes, but they're based on three factors. The basis for any interview is three factors: your resume, your introduction, a very, very important part of the interview, which I'm going to focus on a lot in the course of my presentation, and what you speak thereafter. The entire interview is going to be based only on these three factors. And in any which one way or the other, all interviews are segmented into three parts: the introduction from both sides, then the body, where you speak, the interviewer speaks, the interviewer asks, you answer, you ask, the interviewer answers, you exchange information. Probably you may debate on a subject, it happens, and then the conclusion. Okay, now having known all about interviews and the fears which you should and should not have and need not have, let's get down to how do we prepare for an interview. Preparation one, there are two parts to this. The first part is, before you go for any interview, research the company and the role you are going into. Research the company and the job role requirements. Never ever step in for an interview without researching about the company or the position. A lack of knowledge on any of these two fronts indicates disinterest, and it's going to be very hard for you to recover from. You've got a lot more. You're not prepared with the company and its roles. It's going to be very hard for you to recover on the further questioning that's going to come through, because an impression is already formed which is going to go against you. Now, while we ask you to research about the company or the position, you're not expected to be an authority on the company. Definitely, no way. But what you've got to bring out here is two things. One, you were interested enough to have done some research, to have some knowledge, some understanding of the company you're going to join. Or maybe already it's in your passion, it is your dream company. You wanted to work in this company. You have a certain image in your mind's eye about a company, about how huge that company is, how magnified that company is, how dignified it is. And you don't really know much, but you just want to belong. So you show respect. Show your awareness of the company's business, its quality policy, its obligations, moral obligations, ethical principles. Trust me, quality policy, moral obligations, ethical principles, if you know, it's much more important than the size of the company, the business it does, and where it's going. Also align with recent developments and align these with your own values. Let me give you an example. I'll give you an example since I was with ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil has got a policy. I was in the competency assessment and training department. When you train people, you have to certify them competent. Only then they are able to work independently. Until they are competent, they are working under supervision. But when you take these competency assessment tests, and if a candidate doesn't make it, we can never term him as incompetent. While we classify him as competent, we never term him as incompetent. We say yet to be made competent. This says a lot about the company. It says it has so much of respect for the company, for the individual, for the person, that they don't put down anyone. That respect for the employee is something that is belonging worthy. Anybody, I would want to belong. In fact, I wanted to belong to an organization like that for this one purpose. So these are little things. I can go on and on and on with examples, but that's not the forum here for this. So I'm just giving one. Now, when you do this, you will trigger building a rapport with your interviewer or with that company. Once you align your thinking, your thoughts with what principles the company has got. Coming to your job description, your role description, you may not know everything that you're getting into, but you must have a basic idea. Is it quality assurance? Is it manufacturing? Is it marketing? Is it R&D? You may not know the micros, but you should know the macros here. Ask yourself, what do you have or what you have done that can be used in performing this role? What you have or have done that matches the role requirements. Suppose you have little or no experience in the area and district, no problem. No problem at all. Be honest. Don't use this as a setback. Instead, express, look, I don't have much knowledge about the role, but I have a very keen interest in learning about this. I would like to know more about this. From what I heard about the activity, it sounds interesting. And show how open you are, how eager you are to get trained in this area of work on the job. When you ask questions pertaining to the role, it gives the interviewer the impression that you are already visualizing yourself as part of the team. And the interviewer is going to see that. You can make him see that. Preparation 2 is the resume. Many of you are going to wonder, we all start with a resume. You have your resume before, much before you can get a call for a job. But why did I purposely put resume second and put first research the company? I'll tell you why. When you make your resume first, integrate your resume, every aspect of your resume, work around it, learn to talk about it. Please note, a point to note here, what is on your resume and what you say will generally form the basis for most of what will be discussed in this interview, in any interview. So integrate your resume, know it inside out. Know it inside out, know it thoroughly. Later on in this presentation, I'm going to give you a few tips on how you'll be able to know your resume like the proverbial back of your hand. Know it inside out, be able to speak about everything that is out in your resume from various angles. When I say various angles, I mean from various perspectives. What experience you have gained in your project work, lessons learned from your project, what skills you have developed, identified, influence on your personal outlook, professional outlook. Now here's a point, very, very important. If there is something on your resume that you are not confident about, you can't talk about it much, a weak subject, or any course you have done with it, don't, and if it consider whether it needs to be there. Retrospect, should you mention that? Don't just put everything that you've done on a resume. Decide whether it should be there or not. And if your answer is yes, for this job requirement, it is required. include it because it is related to the job role that you're going in, but do not elaborate on it in your resume because I mean you're not going to talk about it much. It's your weak area. But if you don't need it in the relevant role, do not include it. Now, when you talk, lead the interviewer. What you say is going to generate questions that come after that. When talking about yourself, align everything that you say with what strengths you have highlighted in your resume. Let there not be non-confluencies. Let everything that you speak be in line and match with what is in your resume. And your resume will be eventually targeted towards your job. That's why I put resume second. Because when you're going for a job, little changes have to be made in your resume. Mention subjects that you're strong in. When you talk about subjects that you're strong in as the ones that interest you. Which subject is your most interesting one? Don't say fluid dynamics to impress. If fluid dynamics is not your cup of tea, you may be into thermodynamics. Also, align your interest with what is in relevance to the job position you are seeking. When you're speaking about the project work that you've done, mention project work where you were most involved in and had full control of. Oh, if not full control, good control of. Don't choose a project which you contributed very less, didn't know much about, because when asked questions and an interviewer on projects tends to dig a little deeper, you will lose out. You will not be able to answer. Go well prepared with what projects you're going to talk about. Also, be very, very prepared. And this is a must. This is very important. Be prepared with a project you have failed in. A project that failed. A project that was not successful. And be able to explain why without stone throwing, without blaming anybody else. Never say, that project was successful. I had poor people working with me. I didn't have people who were dedicated. Never. It's a strong no. Limit all your conversation to yourself. Now, this is what I rate as the most important part of the interview. I'll tell you why. Because this part, the introduction, is that part of the interview where you have the most control over it. This is a part of the interview where you're going to say whatever you want, no interruptions, and is giving you full scope. There's no boundaries. You choose what you want to say about yourself. You choose what to say about what you did and or didn't do, what you like or what you don't like. Generally, interviews will begin with an invitation to introduce yourself. Grab that opportunity, seize that control. This is the most preparation you have to do for your interview. Seize that control. Go in with a prepared pitch that demands both the attention and the respect from the interviewer. And thereby, you are setting the tone for all that's going to follow. You impress with your introduction, half the job is done. Showcase yourself in your introduction. Highlight your strengths, what you've accomplished, your valued accomplishments, your achievements. But please note, do not be elaborate. Keep this introductory pitch short, succinct, focused. Just make a mention of things you have done. One-liners. Things you're good at and things that you liked doing. Wise. Do not go into elaborate descriptive details. You will take up time. You will lose the interest of the interviewer. On any subject, if you have picked the interviewer's interest, if his interest was piqued, he will ask to provide for you more details. Even then, mind you, this is the introductory part. Even if he asks for details, keep it to the area of interest, not the nitty-gritty details. If you miss this opportunity, if you miss doing this when invited to introduce yourself at the very beginning, there is a good chance that you're not likely to be presented with another opportunity to highlight yourself. You may or may not get this opportunity. Now the body, there's a lot of things happen in the middle part of the interview, the body part. A lot of study is done by the interviewer, and this is generally I'm using the word generally where you are at the receiving end, but you can change that. Now coming to body conduct, how you conduct yourself, verbally, non-verbally. Let's talk about the non-verbal conduct. How you conduct yourself non-verbally first. Body language, how you dress. It's not enough to dress smart. Dress smart and comfortable. What you've got to do, plan what to wear in advance. Don't spontaneously dress and walk into an interview. Plan. Try an outfit, try various combinations on. Nothing wrong. It's not bad to be vain here. Try your outfit on, check yourself out. Make sure, two things, make sure you look smart and feel comfortable. It should go together. Your arm movements, gestures, body language, handshakes, how you make eye contact, all these little things, how you sit, how you move your body, how often you move, how restless you are, how stiff you are. All these speaks about what kind of a person you are, how interested you are actually in grabbing this opportunity, and it talks about your inner confidence. Keep auditing your non-verbal behavior. Check what messages you are communicating subliminally without people knowing. Never let your non-verbal behavior betray you. Never let it work against you. Even if you feel nervous, act confident. Learn to act confident. Practice composure and poise. Try to exude a calm persona and a sense of confidence. I heard some experts suggest a 2-minute high-power posing exercise before the interview to help build confidence. You can practice this. I'm not an expert on this, no, but I've been told about this, and this is practiced pretty widely by many. In fact, many companies suggest this. Probably you can. I that's why I thought it wouldn't harm to expose you to this kind of a exercise. Coming to the verbal conduct, how do you conduct yourself verbally, what and how to speak, and some strong don'ts. Number one, be honest. No two ways about this. Speak honestly about your qualifications and your skills. This is not an option. Do not speak about a course you have not done, or do not speak about a course which you have done, not confident about. I have known candidates who says to impress. They said they did number of software languages. You ask them about them, they can't tell you. Examples: when did you use Aspen? When did you use MATLAB? When do you prefer for a simulation? Which is better? Can I use MATLAB for fluid dynamics? Or would I choose Aspen? No, they're not able to tell you. So do not put that unless, or do not speak about these courses strongly if you're not strong about it. It may not be related just for the sake. Don't put in I did a course on Six Sigma when it is not required for your job that you're going in, and where you know that you're not going to answer questions if they go a little deeper on Six Sigma. That's an example. 2, very important. Keep your conversation, keep your projections to yourself. Focus on yourself. Every response of yours should showcase yourself as the best candidate, or one who will make a very good candidate. Avoid mentioning other candidates or why you are better than them. Never. Do that. Speak confidently, speak with modulation. That will make your dialogue interesting. It will also demonstrate your certainty in what you're saying. It will bring out your emphasis, what you emphasize on. Speaking inaudibly or in a monotone incites boredom and indicates a lack of confidence. Most important, the interviewer loses interest. Keep your responses to the point, short, concise. Do not elaborate unless you are asked to. The interviewer may not be interested in those details. He's looking for the big picture. Never lose his interest. Now, here's another very important point for all of you. Mention your score if it's impressive. Just mention your score if it's impressive. Don't be loud about your score, even if it's very high. You know why? You may be inviting trouble. How does an interviewer look at an interviewee? If somebody says the score is very high, he gears up. He gears up to ask, take your questioning to a higher level. You are unnecessarily, like I said, you are unnecessarily inviting trouble. Look, he has already, when you come to an interview stage, the interviewer has already seen your resume. He knows your score. Don't flaunt it further. You have better chances of doing well when he doesn't target questions at a different level. How does an interviewer approach an interview? First, you ask basic questions. And if the candidate is a little struggling with the basic, he keeps there. If the candidate is very fluent with all the basic responses, then he takes it to a higher level. He starts going deeper. So please keep this in mind. Be very well prepared on how you respond to a question not clear to you, or you don't know the answer, or you've forgotten the answer to. This is more important than responding to an answer you know. That's easy. And it's acceptable to ask for a question to be repeated. There are ways of asking. So mind saying that again? Could you please repeat the question? I didn't understand it. Oh, the very old traditional, I beg your pardon, sir. But whatever it is, do not be silent to any response. Don't look at the roof or at your feet. It's not going to do you any good. Continue to look him in the eye and tell him, sir, I'm sorry, but I forgot that. I don't remember. Right? I really don't remember because that happens to be my weak subject. So nothing wrong there. It's human to forget. So what do? Anticipate possibilities of freezing. Practice breathing techniques and keep different responses ready for subjects you don't know. Speak slowly. Very important. It may give you time to think when you need it. How many of you have listened to Sadhguru? A classic example. I respect the person. He's a mystic. But notice that every time he's interviewed by the media, he responds slowly. And when asked a controversial question, he takes time. He relaxes. What's he doing? He's formulating the way he should answer, the way he should respond. I think you can't get a better example than that. If you keep answering all your questions rapid fire, and a time will come when you need to think for an answer, you're giving yourself away. Now, all this comes back to point number one. Just be honest. Try to keep honesty in the forefront about what you do, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and your skills. Now, having done that, we're talking about talking and responses. What you should do during your interview. What you should project. How will you project yourself? What is it about yourself which you should try to bring in the forefront? What you should sell. Steer all your responses to bring out the following very important characteristics about you. These are all the things which you must bring out. Very important. Your work ethics and your attitude. Your compatibility. How compatible are you? How easily you work with classmates, colleagues, peer level. Base these statements on certain incidents which you have done earlier. I will come to that later again. Your capabilities. What are you capable of? You have the capacity to handle workloads, to multitask. You're flexible, not rigid in your thinking. How you can prioritize and reprioritize. And how organized are you? What type of a person you are when it comes to focus? How focused are you? Showcase your past experiences and accomplishments. Under what adverse situations you have set targets, took action and achieved results. Give examples, cite examples. A very important aspect again, susceptibility to change. Your openness to learn and correct your thinking. Very, very important. It is one of the things which have taken people right to the very top. If you look at all people who have climbed the corporate ladder, have this one classic ability, their susceptibility to change. Openness to learn, correct your thinking, change your stand. Your potential. Are you a potential candidate or not? Are you a 9 to 5 worker or an 8 to 5 worker, whatever it is? Are you just a day jobber? Bring out your potential, your thirst to learn new things, to widen your peripheral vision, adding new skills. And one thing you must indicate in any interview, that you are looking for growth. You are looking for growth. You are looking for what you are going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. How you see yourself. What are you passionate about? You must bring your passion out. It can be a hobby. It can be an art form that you're passionate about. Not relevant to the job, fine. But the passion, briefly spoken about, tells what inner leaning you have. You always project valuable information on what makes you tick, what makes you vibrate. It talks about your energy level. Your passion, your hobbies give scope for the interviewer to read you between the lines and understand how you will be able to relate this passion in the day-to-day job that you do. How you perform extempore. Sometimes in interviews you're presented with a problem to find a solution. Like HR, they tell you have 2 people coming for leave at the same time. One's got a death in the family, one's got a marriage in the family, which is very, very important. I mean, how will you can give one person leave? How will you, I mean, this is only a basic example I'm giving you. You may present it with a problem to find a solution. They'll be looking at how fast you can think. Now, it's impossible, next to impossible to give the right or wrong answer or give the right answer. So it's not important that you give the right answer. That's not what they're looking for. But what they will be looking for is how you approach the problem. They'll be looking at your thought process. What type of direction you are taking towards a solution or bringing about a solution. So please these are the points where you have to bring out about yourself and keep thinking, evaluating yourself, even before the interview, even on your day-to-day basis. What are of these characteristics you have? What work ethics and attitude? What capabilities you have? What do you focus on? Are you a person ready to change? If not, practice the ability to change your thinking, your stance. What is your potential? Try to find it. What are you passionate about? It can be sport. And how do you perform extempore without planning? Very important to bring out these things, and you have to find ways of bringing this out in the responses for any question that you're given. Now, the other part is going down to specifics in the interview, where they're going to ask you to see your actual recorded behavior, how you handled projects, how you handled a scenario, an adverse situation. Simple. Follow the show and tell principle. You must go to the point to note. You must go to the interview with a few well-chosen examples. Let's talk about your projects. When you're projecting yourself as a team player or a leader, illustrate this with appropriate examples. Examples that will highlight your contribution to the team, to the project, your understanding of the project, and the beneficial nature of the teamwork. Just saying, I am a good team player, I can make a good leader, is just shooting off something in the air. It will not have any credence. It will not inspire belief. Mention why you have chosen your project, why that project was chosen. Why did you do it? How was it applied? And when you talk about a project, that this is very, very important, don't limit to the project you have done or to the activities that you have done. Be able to speak about aspects related to and around your project work. For example, see if I can cite an example now. What comes to let us say if you build a car model, you were simulating some drag force. You should be able to have a basic knowledge of not only this little model that you have worked on,
I guess there's some internet issue. We'll be just right back in a moment. So please be patient till then.
can you hear me?
Sir, you got
Vasu?
disconnected,
Yes, sir.
sir.
Yeah, I got disconnected. I don't know why, but let me go back.
Yes, sir, it's completely fine, sir.
Only I went off, or the whole.
Actually,
Only-
sir, only
only
you,
you.
sir.
Okay, I don't know why this happened, but present now. Tab. Yes. Share. Okay, am I back on?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Alright. Where was I?
The 21. I guess.
Yeah, was I here? Talking about projects, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry about that glitch, but I'll pick up where I left off. So when you work around your projects, if you're talking about drag force in a car, just don't talk about what you have done, but please work around the project. Talk about cite samples of, be aware of other car models on related models. You should be able to talk about different cars, which is the best, this is one example which I can give you, but like that, don't limit it to only what you've been doing. Work around it. Learn a little more beyond what you are working with. That shows that you're a person who has an insatiable thirst for knowledge, and you would like to explore out of the box. Now, when you're talking about scenarios that you're faced, explain how you effectively approach different work scenarios. Cite examples to show how you dealt with or how you involved or intervened in specific adverse situations. Cite very clear examples to bring out your ability to settle a dispute, how you brought about a resolution. Now, what you showcase when you talk about your projects is your professional attitude towards work, your ease of working with peers and management, capacity to handle workloads, can you handle pressure, can you multitask? And when you talk about the scenarios, if you bring in the proper examples, it showcases your behavioral skills, how flexible you are, your organization skills, your initiative, dealing with conflict, working under pressure, a little of your leadership qualities. How do you do this? What you've got to do to work for the long run is keep a record of all such incidents that happen. Build stories around them, which you can talk about when you go for an interview. Now, another important aspect of the interview is the ending or the closure of the interview. How do you end an interview? Point to note here is the last impression is as important as the first, just as important as the first. So make that impression last. Have a very firm plan on how you will leave at the end of the interview. Prepare a strategy. Look, at the end of the interview, you're going to be mentally drained and you're going to feel relieved. You may miss the importance of last impressions. So be prepared for it. And don't let them see that. Don't let them see relief. Don't let them see you drained of energy. 2, ask specific and well thought out questions about the position in the company. When you're given the opportunity, you can ask for the opportunity. It brings about your curiosity, your insight, your enthusiasm. That means you're not there for the ride. You've got an objective, you've got a goal. You want to be part of the company. You want to know about the company you're going to join. Reiterate your qualifications for the job. Restate your interest in the position. It endorses your interest in the job. It shows you how interested you are in the job. Not any job. You're interested specifically in this job. Inquire if the interviewer requires any additional information or documentation. It's a good note to end on. Sir, is there anything that you need from me? It shows your concern and thoroughness. Very important. Few do it. Most of the time I find this lacking. And of course, don't forget the customary thank you, but make it sound like it's coming from your heart. Leave on a pleasant and positive note. Don't say thank you and walk out. Thank you, linger for a second and then move. This shows stamina in your assertiveness. You're not there just to run away. Now, after the interview is over and you come out, take yourself in retrospect. What information you should have left back after you left the interview session. Now, did you leave that information or not? Evaluate yourself. Did you let them know you can fit the role? Yes, good. That was one of the most important things. Did you let them know that you are motivated by the company or by the role or by the nature of work? It could be any of things, not necessarily only the company. I'm not worried about the company, but I want to be a quality assurance head. Not particular about which company, but I would like to be into R&D. And doing an R&D job is what makes me tick. Somewhere in your interview, have you given them the information that you're a person who's keenly interested in learning, keenly interested in expanding your knowledge, in doing more, in doing better? Are you ready, a person who's ready to learn from anyone, any level? Or do you have an ego? Are you open to adapt to a new culture? We spoke about susceptibility to change. That's what. Are you open to adapt to a new culture? Yes. I've seen the best of people, excellent people in my career, who have lost out only because they were not able to adapt to a new culture. And today, change is the most sought after attitude in any profession, and that you are susceptible to change. So here itself, looking at all these three will tell you, have you been you've done a good interview or not, without getting the job offer. You've got your answers here. So I mean, we had enough on interviews, the fears, what you should do, how you behave in an interview, how you speak, how you talk, how you dress, how you speak about your projects, your scenarios, bringing out your character. Now, let's take a sum total of all that we've spoken. What determines success in an interview? What determines that you have been successful or unsuccessful in an interview, whatever that means? What you should have done to be successful, and what are the things you do which are likely to end up being unsuccessful? Career goals. If you wanted to be successful, you must clearly articulate, spell out your career goals, explain how those goals relate with your applied position. Show them a sense of direction. A very positive trait. Providing no clear indication of career goals or the relation between those and the position of applied for means you don't have a strong sense of direction. Identification with employers. Identifying your thinking, your thought process with that of the employer. Mention the organization by name often. Exhibit knowledge of the organization. What are you doing? You're attributing importance to the company. You're likely to be unsuccessful if you rarely or you do not at all mention the organization by name, and if you don't demonstrate enough knowledge of the organization. Look, you're looking for a job, you're going to join them. You must know something about them. For arguments, debates, opinions that you put forward during the interview, how do you support them? Your support for these arguments and opinions. Whenever you speak about such incidents, provide illustrations, comparisons, contrasts, statistics. Use referrals. References, it can either be colleagues, people, or you can even use a book as a referral. Show a basis for whatever you say. Nothing should be spoken of in the air. It doesn't give you much value if you provide little evidence or support material when answering questions. It means you are just citing something which you are not sure about. Where did you source it from? Where did you source that knowledge? It doesn't talk much about you. Be a participant in an interview, not at the receiving end. A participation is very important. Involve actively throughout the entire process of the interview and spend a great deal of the interview talking. The only way you can dissipate energy this is the only way you will be able to dissipate energy in the interview. You get a chance, talk. When you get a chance on a subject that you're strong about, talk. But remember what I told you about modulation. Playing a passive role, talking very little, waiting for a question to answer, no. On your verbal communication, use active, concrete, positive words. Speak technically, use technical jargon associated with the position, relevant to the position. You're an engineer if you are. Do not speak a layman's language. At one time, I may contradict myself, or you may think I'm contradicting myself. I tell you, keep your language simple. I've never spoken about it, but follow the KISS principle. Keep it simple and stupid. But when you're talking about certain issues related to the job, bring out the technicality in you. You generate a positive and pleasant vibe. using passive, ambiguous, negative words, and no technical jargon means doesn't substantiate your knowledge. And both verbal and non-verbal communication, when you speak loud, clear, confidently, modulate your talk. I'm sorry, this should be in verbal and non-verbal communication, but there's only non-verbal there, so ignore that. Speak loud, clear, confidently, modulate your talk, avoid non-fluencies. Let whatever you say match what's in your resume, what you've said before, what project work you have done. Do not contradict yourself. Incorporate meaningful gestures. And when the interviewer is talking to you, you don't always have to say yes sir, yes sir. Please avoid that. Support interviewer comments with positive non-verbal feedback, nodding, smiling, agreeing. Very important. Make eye contact with the interviewer. I'm not telling you to stare at him. Do not stare at the same time or glare. But make eye contact, especially when you're answering a question. More importantly, when you're answering a question about yourself, because it talks about sincerity. You must have heard the age-old cliche that the eyes are the window to the world. So keep that in point. Speaking softly, hesitantly, no variation in your vocals, making long, inappropriate pauses. All these indicate that you're not confident and are very distracting in nature. Engaging in little or no eye contact means you're not sure about what you're saying, or you're not totally truthful about what you're saying. All right, now the second part of this, developing the art of facing interviews and from when. So when do we start this? When do you start developing your art for facing interviews? The answer is now. Be you an undergraduate, before graduation, first year, second year, final year, you're going into masters anytime. Look, interviews are growth opportunities. We spoke about that before. Make interviews part of your perspective. Interviewing is a skill for both the interviewer and the interviewee. Like all skills, you can improve your competence with experience and practice. So in truth, the best preparation for a job interview is doing interviews as often as you can. Any format. You can ask somebody to interview you. You can interview yourself. Go for mock interviews. Go for sessions. Each interview makes you more at ease with the format, the style, the questioning, and getting familiar with interviews, overcome your fears for interviews. You realize that nothing really much happens there. On the other things on your resume, practice building your resume, modify and update it after each semester, after each project. Keep working on your resume. This is the point where I told you in the beginning, knowing your resume inside out. Don't touch your resume or look at it only when you have to go for a job. Keep working on your resume regularly. I would say look at your resume every month. And you will find that if you keep records of that version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you will see how you have progressed from 1 to 10. You will see the quality building up in your own eyes. You will feel it. And that will motivate you to do better. Speaking, talk your walk. I know many a good candidate who just knew their subject very well, high scores, knowledgeable, but couldn't present themselves verbally. So talk your walk. Very easy to do this. Talk your subject constantly. The best improvement method for communication and knowledge is try explaining your subject to peers, juniors. It's when you try to explain what you know to somebody else that you know how much you really know. Widen your choice of vocabulary. Communication. You will learn to communicate better. Behavior. Let observation be a part of your life. Continuously make observations on how people speak, how people express themselves. Try to interact with people from all walks of life. This is not about interviews. This is about making you a better person, a stronger person. Strike up conversations, any subject. Please take a note. Those people who travel a lot are generally, again, I'm generalizing, speak better, behave better. They have better mannerisms. Mannerisms, learn and practice good manners. How to greet when you meet, on the road, at a venue, even if it's at a dining table. Watch people. Coming to dress, present yourself. Learn to dress appropriately. Keep checking your looks vis-a-vis your comfort level. These are things that will make you develop as a person and also thereby incidentally prepare you for an interview. Now, for all these things which we do over here, all this, there's a solution. When I'm talking about interviews and presentation skills and soft skills development, there is Interview Buddy. I mean, the company who's made this possible. Interview Buddy is basically a solution for all your training and your development needs, self-development needs. Interview Buddy is a very popular video interviewing platform. They offer one-on-one personalized practice, counseling interviews, and they have industry experts from companies like Google, Biocon. You got I'm not going to read them out. The list is there. From all facets of the industry. Interview Buddy is a NASSCOM 10K startup. They've conducted over 30,000 interviews and more, and still counting. They're supported by a global expert panel of 1350 plus vetted industry leaders, experts from both the industry and academic backgrounds. They offer white labeled interviewing infrastructure services, counseling to universities, colleges, edtech partners, corporates, staffing agencies across UK, Russia, Switzerland, Germany, even the UAE, not mentioned here. They have a very clear-cut process. Personalized one-to-one, one-on-one video practice interviews with industry experts based on the domain. Objective and interview requirement. There is counseling included in this interview session. Constructed feedback report with tips to improve upon weaker areas. Insider tips to crack specific job interviews. Recordings are provided to you. Student can always play that back and review for self-analysis, improvement. Webinars like the one we are having now, masterclasses, online, boot camps, mock group discussions, and since I've late, resume writing services. Listed below are some of the edtech partners and the clientele. Very impressive list. This talks about the quality of services that Interview Buddy will offer. Here's a piece of advice which I would like to give you all. For those of you who want to come for mock interviews, or practice interviews as you may call them, there are two things. There's a mock interview and there's a counseling interview. What happens in a mock interview? In a mock interview, we ask you questions. We try to mimic what an interview would actually be. You get the questions, whatever questions. You have to go and find your own answers and get prepared for the questions that are likely to come. You have a little counseling in it, but in small sessions, you don't get. You're looking at the 80-20 principle. 80% of the time is questions, 20% goes into little counseling, where the interviewer finds areas which you most need. But I would suggest also ask for counseling interviews. Maybe 1 session, 2 sessions, 3, 4 sessions, where you can get counsel on various facets of how you can face an interview, how you can conduct yourself, your body language. I mean, this is something which is useful for you and you can take up any time. All right, so now it's the time for questions, and you can ask questions. But before we go into the question session, there's one thing which Interview Buddy is giving you. Here it is. You can claim a system-driven interview, which is given free. You scan this QR code, and it's a freebie. You get the system-driven interview free with this presentation. It's worth 899 rupees. And look at once you go into this system-driven interviews, you get an idea. And the quality that's going to come later in the mock and counseling interviews is going to be much better than that. So anyhow, thank you so far for listening to me, and I hope you made of it. Now we can go in for the Basu and Tana. We can go in for a question session if anybody has now.
Yes, sir. So we had a question. Just a sec, sir. Actually, yes, sir, I got reconnected. So the question was related to slide number 9.
Okay, I'll read it. It was from Ifra regarding the slide number 9. So her question was, do facial expressions matter in an interview? If it is so, okay. So if it is so, can you throw some light on this? Whether we need to be serious every time or can be flexible too?
All right. Facial expressions are very important. Eye contact, I spoke about eye contact and I spoke about glaring. Do not glare. It's not good to be serious. At the same time, it's not good to grin all along or smile all along. I spoke about speech modulation. The same thing applies for your facial expression. Modulate, change. You will know, the interviewer will sometimes make you comfortable. He will ask you how well you sing. Are you good at singing? You like dancing? I mean, it's okay to smile and talk. If he talks about the subject, yes, when you are talking technically about technical jargon, it pays to be a little serious at that time. It all goes with you have to mirror your expression with that of the interviewer. If the interviewer is a very serious person, ask you seriously, respond seriously. And then he will be a little light, and then he will ask you in a very casual way. Sometimes interviewers ask you that to keep you comfortable, and it's okay to smile. Bottom line, what's the guideline? How would you have a conversation with somebody? When would you be serious and when would you smile when you're having a conversation with anyone? Follow the same principle. Yes?
That was a single question in the chat box. Participants, if you want to ask any question, you can go ahead, open your mic or write in the chat box. Answer is available for now. If anyone has any doubt, even a little about any of the things sir has spoken about, so you can go ahead. Okay, so there's one more question. Are there any specific questions we should write about and practice before interviews?
Mind saying that again, Donu?
Are there any specific questions we should write about and practice before interviews?
Oh yes. Oh yes. I think I've mentioned that all throughout my presentation. When you talk about if you go to this part, for example, there are throughout. If you talk about this, how you close. If you look at the slide, have a firm plan on how you will leave at the end of the interview. You will be mentally drained. So don't miss the opportunity. Ask specific and well thought out questions about the position and the company. This is one example. You want to talk about the company, talk about growth. Make a point. You have to ask this question. If you don't actually write out, the point of writing is to remind you. Will you have to be sure to ask the company, do I let them know? You have to ask them that is there potential for growth in your company? One example. There are many questions like this which you must be prepared to ask the employer. Yes, you must go prepared with questions.
Okay, sir. One more question from Asmita. Sir, as you mentioned, we should ask questions at the end to showcase our interest. So, what can we ask?
Can you mind repeating that, please?
Sure, sir. Sir, as you mentioned, we should ask questions at the end to showcase our interest. So, what can we ask? So, like you have mentioned that we should ask some questions at the end of the interview to showcase our interest in the job for the positions we're applying. She is asking. So,
Okay.
what questions can we ask?
Ask specific and well thought out questions about the position in the company. So you will ask them like, so what is the policy you have for promotion in the company? I mean, how do you encourage? What strategies you have for motivating people? What is your reward system? Do we have a policy that how many years, how long anybody should be in the same role? His promotion is only need based, only when that there's a vacancy above. What happens if the person above me doesn't move on or doesn't retire or resign or move into another position for years? Do I have to remain in this position until that? What policies do you follow? Tomorrow, if I want, can I change my area of work? Will I be encouraged to explore other areas? Oh, there's a host of questions you can ask. So you have to see what you're interested, what role you're going into, and based on anything that you want to know. Bottom line, to give you the guidance, you're going in for this job. It's about you. You know what type of person you are. Anything that you want to know. What you want to be in this company, what you want to do.
Also, so we have another question from Radhika.
Yeah.
It goes like, if something goes wrong during the interview, maybe if you're late or forgot some papers or anything goes wrong, how should we cover that up during the interview?
Okay, good question. And at some time or the other, everybody faces this. Yes, number one, I didn't take the trouble to explain this, but one thing is never be late for an interview. You should always be on time. You should always be not on time. You should be at least 15 minutes earlier. All right. Now, if ever, due to unavoidable circumstances, something beyond your control happens, and if you go, number one, be very, very apologetic. Number two, give a very valid reason of why this happened and let them know that this was. Now, I'm talking about coming late. It was beyond your control. I'm very sorry. This was something that I just couldn't do. I set out early, but something happened. You can tell what happened on the way. And then one very important thing. I hope, sir, that because of this, it's not going to affect my selection process in any way. Very important to add. Yes.
Anyone has any other questions?
No, the person Radhika, I think, who asked this question, is she satisfied with this, or is there something else which I did not understand, which she wants to know?
Yes,
Uh,
sir. She's satisfied, sir.
All right.
So that is it, sir. We had a lot of questions, and I guess there's no more questions left.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We can end this
I would
here.
just like to know one thing from my side. I mean, was everybody comfortable with the presentation? Were they able to understand me? Were they able to absorb what I told them?
Yes, you can communicate via chat box, or you can turn on your mic and speak, please.
Yeah, turning on the mic would be better. I would think it'd be okay. So,
Yes, sir.
Vasu, there's one more question in the chat box. Please look at
Yeah,
it.
just a sec. So if we say from our side, the presentation was awesome and it was like more clear. It made many things, many doubts clear. And now I'll guess that other are also like up at par with me, sir. Also, we have a question that it goes like, how to answer why should we choose you over other applicants?
thank you for the compliment. And to answer your question, uh, in fact, I'm sorry, actually, I should have covered it. But I mean, it's a big session, so I wanted to keep it separate. But anyhow, there are two very difficult questions that you'll get into in an interview. Not easy to handle. One is, why should we choose you over other applicants? All right. And the other question is, what is your what is your greatest weakness? Two things which are very, very dicey. All right, we'll talk about your question that you asked me first. Why should we choose you? Look, you know what role you're going into? Let's say, let me cite an example. You're going into the automobile industry, right? Now, you have to say from young, I had a passion for cars, for motorbikes, for engines. Whether it's on a two-wheeler or if it's on a four-wheeler, whether it was in a truck, I was always fascinated even as a kid. And later, when I went up, as I grew up, my interest in this field, if at all it changed, only for the better. It made me more passionate. When I went into college and I did my project work, and if you did a project work, you'd say when I did the project, I did it with ease. Now, what I think is why I'm the best person for this role is when I come in, I'm going to do something which my heart is sought after. I'm going to put my everything in it. It's something which is like a dream role. It's a dream job for me. I did tell you that your passion for going into a company earlier is either you're motivated by the company, by the role, or by the nature of work. In this case, it's your role and nature of work. I'm getting into automobiles, something which I loved as a child. It's my dream come true. And this is something where I would like to stay in. This is one example which I can give you. And all of you can modulate this on the same lines. May I know who asked that question?
Sir, it was Radhika herself.
Radhika, sir. Okay. Then another question I asked you when they're going to ask you, I mean, I got the idea from this is tell you what is your greatest weakness? It's very, 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 very difficult to answer this question, and get away with it. Like, please mention a weakness which you know is not going to affect your role in the company that you're getting employed by or planning to get employed by. If you're going into quality insurance, you say, look, mathematics was my weak subject. I never liked mathematics. That was my biggest problem. Or my other weakness is, learn to bring out a weakness which could also be a advantage to the company. The problem with me is that I find it very difficult to compartmentalize my life. I'm a little bit of a workaholic. My biggest weakness is I can't balance my life between home and work. I'm too much of an alcoholic for that, and I have to work on that. Not a bad thing to say. Another example is that it's very difficult to keep to timing in work. Once I get involved in something, I do not want to stop until I finish it. I know it's bad. I know I have to stop for some time and I have to pick up tomorrow what I've left off today. But I have this problem of detaching from work. It's a weakness, but the company will look at it as a strength. And examples like this. Okay.
Radhika, you may unmute yourself and ask your questions. So she has a few more questions.
Oh yeah, go ahead, please.
So my question was, if the interviewer asked, tell us about a time when you found a very innovative solution to something, or you successfully found a hack to something, then at that time, what should we answer? Like, if we don't exactly remember, like, if something like this happened, if we are kind of blank, what to answer? That
Have you done something, some innovative activity on your own? But you're saying you don't remember that. You don't have anything to talk about.
Yes, by chance, if this happens, then.
All right. Give me an idea. What kind of role you're talking about? Maybe I'll help you better. So.
Maybe if it is an internship role or a job role or whatever.
Okay, fine, right. Okay, all right. You can say that when you were in your internship, you were asked to work on some project and give some ideas, but you have contributed in trying to streamline systems. I did not do anything innovative on my own, but I did a lot of improvement activities. Like I've set right a lot of systems which was there. I improved the systems very much. I have cut out some unnecessary activity. I have cut out some unproductive activity, which could save time and make work more effective. I have modified some systems to shortcut them. But I wouldn't call them innovative. They're not something new, it's not something I thought of, but I did a lot of work on improvements, on modifications, on changing things. I was not good in innovation. I didn't do really much in innovation, but I brought about a lot of change in a work systems or in the culture or whatever it is, you can say. I brought a lot of change in certain procedures.
Okay, sir. So thank you so much.
Most welcome. Not everybody is innovative, huh? Not everybody are leaders. Not everybody is innovative. It doesn't mean they're not good. So you can do better things without being innovative. Not everybody is Einstein.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so.
And so one more question. If they ask you about your leadership skills,
Yes.
yes. So how do we convince them that we can be a good leader? Like we'll definitely mention about the roles that
Yes.
we previously had, but how do we convince them?
Look, you are not yet in the workforce. You've not had an opportunity to play a leadership role as yet at work. Okay, you did not head a department or whatever. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
But
other leadership roles that we had in college or
yes. I'm coming to that. But you say that when I handled, you must have handled some projects as part of your curriculum, or you must have headed certain activities.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You must have handled certain activities. So what you've got to talk about is that when I took these activities, when I undertook these activities, and when I did this project, I found that it was very easy for people. I found that people were listening to me very easily, and I could lead people, and I could convince people. I could explain to them. I could understand them. I could make them understand. And I realized then that I do have leadership qualities in me.
Okay, sir. Okay,
So
sir.
one more interesting question we have, that it's from Asmita. She says that, sir, if I am sitting in a consulting role interview, which is mostly case study problem solving based, what should I do if at that point I'm unable to provide a better solution to that case?
In a consultation case, at that point of time, you're not going to be alone. I know I'm asking. You're going to be with a. You're going to be among a group of people, or you're going to be alone.
Sir, alone, sir.
All right, alone. Fine. Uh, Let me understand what you said. Right. They're asked. You're in a consultation kind of an interview, where they're asking you for solutions to a particular issue or a problem. Am I right?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And you don't have an answer. I told
Yes.
you, for any such, there's one thumb rule. Be honest about it. So right now, I don't see a solution in front of me. But I need to think about this, and I have to come back to you. Right now, I can't see a solution. It needs time. I've got to chew on it. I've got to think about it. I've got to evaluate it a little and then come out. Probably we may have to bring some more minds into this. Right now, immediately, I don't see a solution. I'm sorry. But I need some time. Probably I can get back to you.
But sir, will they offer me that time to come back and just give that solution? I don't think so. They will be giving me the second
Look at it.
chance.
You don't have a solution. You don't have a solution. There's nothing you can do about it, right?
Okay, okay.
Okay. I
Yes.
mean, come down to brass tacks. What can we do? You can't work a miracle, right? You're not a miracle worker.
True, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the next alternative. Work a miracle and solve the problem. But no. And they won't expect you. You think it's so easy that you think normally for situations which are difficult to crack, there's no solution immediately on an individual to individual basis. Generally. So you don't have to worry about it. Don't worry ahead too much about that.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
I guess that answers all the questions.
Okay.
So, sir, if you have anything to say as the concluding part, you may continue, or else we
Yeah,
are.
I'll just wind up. I'll just take a minute. Thank you, Basu. Yeah, it was a pleasure presenting this to all of you, and I would be only happy that if everybody gained something from this. Just tell everybody. I want everybody to know there is no exhaustive talk on interviews. Nowhere. Like I said when I started off, there's every interview, every interview, same job, same qualification, same company. No two interviews are the same. It swings in different ways. Just keep yourself open, improve your knowledge. Learning is a day-to-day process. And the key point, I will always say that don't feel intimidated by the interviewer or the interviewee. He is having as difficult a time as you. So keeping that in mind, wish all of you all the very best. And I hope you'll do well in whatever you attempt. Thank you.
So we welcome everyone, and thanks a lot for joining. We have the Interview Buddy website link in our chat box. You may catch up. And sir, if you please show that QR code once again. Sure, sir.
1 second. How do I get to that?
So you may press escape,
Mhm.
and so, but your screen is freezed, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. But I should know.
So it's completely fine. You may check out their website.
Can I
Yes, sir.
log in and log in again?
Sir, sure, sir.
I'll do that. No, better.
Till then, we thank everyone present here. It was great having you guys, and we'll be having more such events. So stay in the group, and we'll be sharing all the other links for such upcoming events. Could you please share the PPT with us if possible? Once Sir rejoins, I'll ask that. Also, guys, if you have any feedback, if you have any other suggestions, you may share it. Excuse me, sir, you are on mute. Yeah. So, guys, please scan this QR code, and I guess there's some technical issues with Sir's mic, but do scan this QR code and stay connected with Interview Buddy and CSI SRM NCR chapter. Thank you, guys. Thank you, sir. It was great having you, sir. With that said, we end this session here.
Yeah. Can I log out now?
Sure,
Okay.
sir, sure.
Okay.
And
Thank
for the groupies, like I have posted the QR code in the group as well, so you can take it from there.
Thanks.
Thank you everyone for joining.